Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakthrough Moment podcast, where we interview successful entrepreneurs and that pivotal moment in their career that broke them into the next level of success. And as they share their big breakthroughs with us at home can also have breakthroughs as well. Today's special guest and good friend is John Templeton. Thanks for jumping on, John. It's been a
Thank you.
while.
It has.
Where did you go? I'm so excited to hear your story, the highs, the breakthroughs, maybe the breakdowns, and I'll do a quick little intro for everyone at home to give you a bit of an intro to everyone at home. So, for those who don't know John, he's an ex-army special force physical instructor. He's a Guinness World Record holder and national champion. Keen to hear about that. He's a successful strategic investor. He has trained professional athletes, Olympic athletes, and celebrities. He has spoken alongside, get this, Tony Robbins, Rob Sharma, Deepak Chopra, and John DeMartini, and he's happily married with his wife, Heather. So, welcome to the podcast. I'd love to know. Let's jump straight into this. And I do want to just share, we've known each other for like maybe 4 years now. We met at a
Longer,
personal
longer,
development
longer.
event. 5?
It
Okay.
was, yeah, I think longer. But I could be wrong. Maybe my time's warped because was it pre-COVID? It was during because we had to,
Maybe.
there was space, the seats were spaced out like a few meters apart, I remember. So it would have been
Yeah.
during COVID. So let's say, yeah, 4 or 5 years if it was
4 or 5
2020.
years. That
Yeah,
was when I
yep,
was doing the 14-day water fast. We
yep.
met out front of the event and I was like, who's this guy? What's going on? What's your story? Next thing I know, I was sharing water fasting with your community and coaching clients. You invited me to your podcast. We've been friends ever since. So man, I'm so excited for this. Over to you.
Where shall I start? What do you want to know?
Oh, share with us your biggest breakthrough moment throughout your
Okay.
career. Let's start with that.
The obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but breakthroughs come when you're at a sticking point. You're at a tough point. So there was a breakdown moment that it kind of leveled me more than I'd ever been leveled before. And I was doing quite well as an entrepreneur. I was speaking on stages and making at times like obscene amounts of money, but that sort of elated high um wasn't sustainable. And so COVID came in, and when COVID came in, I was running events and retreats. I had to cancel all of those, and financially I'd put money out. I couldn't get a refund, and I had to refund the people from my retreats. So it was just I was in this really tough financial position. And I'd built a lifestyle which was probably, well, it was greater than my capacity to fund it post COVID. Pre COVID, when it was going great, fantastic. Afterwards, I couldn't fund it. And so I had put myself in a situation that was really fragile almost. I just didn't realize how fragile it was. It's kind of like planet Earth at the moment. I think it's quite fragile. Like one nuclear bomb and the thing's gone. And all it takes is one person to say the wrong thing or make a mistake and the whole thing blows up. Well, that was my life. COVID came in and my life sort of blew up. So I couldn't afford the lifestyle. I couldn't make money. I couldn't generate money very easily. And it's funny, I realized that a lot of my self-worth was also tied to my financial position. So as my finances were spiraling and I was in a life situation that I couldn't see a way out of, my mental state started to spiral and it just compounded down and down. And I found myself feeling really, I had low self-esteem, really low self-esteem, lots of unworthiness, and just went into this depression for a number of years. And during that time, I had a mentor. He sort of led me into those high points, and I got rid of the mentor. And then I started looking for other people. But everything I touched, when my self esteem was down and when I was depressed, anything I touched just turned to shit. Prior to that, it's like anything I touched turned to gold. And so I would hire people, and I would spend so much money on digital marketers, marketing agencies, mentors, tens of thousands, and nothing I did worked. And I felt like my life had gone from, standing on top of the podium with the gold medal to last place finisher. Everybody's left the race to go home with their families, and I was still crawling around the race course. I just felt destroyed. And so it was the spiral of failure in business that dented my self-worth more, failure in business. It was just this downhill spiral. And there were times where a number of times, especially in the sort of 3 years, where I was suicidal because I felt like a failure, but then I had no hope for the future. So when I looked forward, I was like, now sucks and the future sucks. And I also looked at my past and went, all of that's meaningless because I'm unhappy now. So it was like past sucked, present sucked, future sucked, and there was no escape plan. So that's when these suicidal thoughts came in, going, if there's no hope at living, well, why don't you try dying? That's the escape from the pain. So that obviously didn't happen. And I started to, I knew deep down that if I had created the situation, I could uncreate it. And so I lent on that belief. Like, if you've created this, you can uncreate it. And so the sort of final straw, I went to a therapist and she said a few things to me which didn't feel right. And there was something inside, call it my intuition, which was saying, this lady is not steering you in the right direction, which is crazy because I didn't know what the right direction was, but there was something inside of me that knew. Okay, I didn't know at the time, call it intuition, but because I was such a mental and emotional mess, I was listening to anyone's advice. I was such a sucker for opinion. And that just made things worse because one therapist would have one opinion, another therapist would have another opinion, and it was just confusing. So anyway, this one therapist said this, and something inside of me said, no, don't do what she's saying. And so I went upstairs to my bedroom and I sat in my chair and I started sort of meditating. And this is when the breakthrough started happening because there was something inside of me, a compass saying no to this woman's instructions, essentially. And I was like, what is that? What is that thing inside of me? And I started meditating. Now, I had meditated for, let's say, 5 years prior, but it was fluffy guided meditations. It was, you're grateful with life. That's it. You're good. This was different. This was getting in touch with just something deeper inside of me. So I did that, and it was a guidance system. And I started to lean on that because I realized people's opinions were relatively cheap. Everyone had one, meant nothing. And that's when I started to lean on my own inner guidance. And I don't want to call it an opinion because it's not like a polarized position. It was truthful. Whatever was inside of me was truthful. So I started meditating way more, and I just wanted to connect with this part of me. And I did this really big meditation, and I didn't put a time on it. I just sat and I was like, I'm going deeper than ever before. And I'd read books about spirituality, enlightenment, theological experiences of divinity. And I just went, I want that. Whatever that is, I want that. This physical world is not bringing me fulfillment. It's not making me happy. I want that. So I started meditating for hours and hours each day. And then one day I had the most profound experience. I write about it in depth in my book, but I sat down and I was fighting with my mind and my emotions, and that went on for an hour, and I wanted to get up and stop, and I just stayed with it. I was like, John, if you get up now, your life continues. Your shitty life continues. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And I kept doing that. All of a sudden, everything just went silent. And I'm not talking about quiet. I'm talking about, I've never heard the sound of silence before, but it was this crystal clear, pure experience of abundance, silence. But it's indescribable, couldn't describe it. I came out of that meditation, I checked my phone, it had been 4 hours, roughly 4 hours I was in there. It had not felt like that. The first 20 minutes to an hour was a struggle, and then who knows what happened. But after that, I was different. My nervous system was just so stable. There was I was at peace. I was at peace with myself. And that gave me a reference point for who John Templeton was, what it meant to be true to myself, what it meant to be authentic. And I will tie this into breakthroughs in business in a second. So that gave me a reference point. And from there, it's like whatever was happening externally, if my money went down, it's like, no, because I know who John is now. And there's nothing outside that affects me. And I say that self-esteem fluctuates, but self-worth is permanent. Everybody has it. Every soul has it. If you're a human being on this planet, you have self-worth. There is nothing that anybody can do to take it away from you. All you can do is not see it, because when you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, you're worthy and you're valuable, and I realized that. And so all of the experiences in my life then became simply experiences, but they didn't affect my self-worth, who I was as a person. And everything really sprung out from that point. Now, that state of being didn't last because life happened. I needed to make money. everything kicked in, but I had a reference point for what was true and what was false. And so that's when I started researching philosophy, theology, psychology to figure out what had happened and how to get myself into that state more frequently, to be connected to who I was, to be able to make accurate decisions or empowering decisions that weren't coming from a place of fear. It wasn't coming from the need to be validated. It was just coming from pure truth within me. So the biggest breakthrough was realizing that our soul, our authentic self, if we let that lead us, we're so good on so many different fronts. One, we're fulfilled within ourselves because the outside world is really just our playground now. It's our canvas that we paint on. But making decisions becomes far easier because we're clear on who we are. We don't have to live up to society standards, our peer standards, our partner. I don't have to live up to my wife's. I don't have to please her. It's like I just get to be me. And if people want to be in my life, whether that is intimately or as clients, that's up to them. They can come to me. And so there's this element of freedom. And when it comes to business, you would have seen this, especially in the coaching space. There's so many, everyone's a coach these days. And I reached a point where I was like, I'm not going to compete with these people because I know that within me is more. And people on social media were posting posts that weren't their own. They were getting a viral reel, putting it on theirs, and that was making them go viral. And all of a sudden they grew their following. And I was like, this is so inauthentic. I was like, it's working for them, but I'm just not playing this game. And so I realized that unique, authentic aspect of ourselves is it's unique, as in Zach, there's only one Zach. There's only one of you on the whole entire planet, and that is your magic. That is your gift, and that is what you don't have to compete at being you. And so when we tap into this genius aspect of ourselves, and it is a genius, there is creativity and inspiration that comes through which nobody else can tap into. And I believe in business that is the ultimate superpower because business is a competitive area. People, companies rise and fall, but the truth within a person, the soul is immortal. And when that part of you is building the business, it's inspired, it's on a mission, it carries an energy that no other being carries. And when that's infused into your work, in every post you write, in every podcast you do, when that's infused into it, you can't compete. You can't compete with someone who's truthful and authentic.
Well, thank you for being here. Right? You've gone through a lot, John. I appreciate you're still here, and it's beautiful to hear this story, and I had no idea. So, yeah, this new book that you've got, Authenticity, the Art and Science of Being Your True Self, stems, I'm guessing, from this story. I couldn't agree more. The authentic self, our authentic expression, our genius is probably only experienced by a select few, would you say, in this world?
Yep. And I think there are degrees to it as well. So some people might have moments of it where they have clarity and inspiration comes in, and then life is in the way. And that might go on for years. They drop unconscious again, and years go by, and then they get a taste again. And our soul is always ever present. It's up to us to build that connection. And so I know that I call it contemplation, like really reflecting on our life and the parts of us that are inauthentic, programmed from the past, all of the nonsense we've picked up along the way. The more we contemplate and integrate, the higher degree of energy is coming from that source, as opposed to coming from motivation, trying to achieve goals and all of this external stuff.
An incredible breakthrough. Tell us about the book. How did then the book? How's this book been birthed since that?
Selfishly, I wrote it for me because I had this experience and I wanted to document what the hell was happening and how do I get back to that point. So I journaled. It started with journaling, and I love drawing pictures. So if anyone reads the book, I'm a diagram guy. So there's the map of emotion sits at the center of it, which is how we understand who we are. So the map of emotion is the centerpiece of the work, but there's lots of diagrams, and I'm talking about hundreds of pieces of paper over years. It's about 3 years I've been writing for, or at least putting together the outline. And my own journaling, there were times I would sit and write, like, why am I so sad, or why am I so depressed, and then I would sort of connect the piece of the puzzle going, well, I'm having these thoughts. And then I would see patterns in my own thinking and emotions and even actions. So I just collected all of this data and put it into a coherent book. So I had a model and a framework for, let's say, psychologically understanding what it means to be authentic and live an authentic and inspired life. Some of those models, the first model I introduced is called the pattern model, and that is 4 aspects to a pattern: thoughts, feelings, actions, outcomes. Every thought we have, we don't even know it, but it's creating our reality, it's creating our life, and it's not magic, it's a sequence of cause and effect, right? So it's our thinking leads to a certain feeling within us. Let's say fear or excitement, they're our driving forward emotions. So if we think about the future in a negative manner, we're going to experience some kind of fear. Like if we look towards the future and we're like, not good, that's going to bring fear into us, and that fear is going to drive us in one direction. If we look into the future and see sort of a more positive future, that's going to bring up excitement in us, and we're going to take a different pathway. So our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to different actions, and those actions lead to our outcomes, and that's our life. That's our entire life, and it's based on our thinking. So we go through the pattern model, and then in the book, we dive into each aspect. We dive into, well, what is thinking? We dive into what are emotions, which is where the map of emotion comes in. We dive into the different quality of action, which is you can either be motivated or inspired. It's sort of binary in a sense. And then we look at the outcomes someone is really striving for in their life. And I mean, it's a potent book, and it's deep. I will say it's deep for anyone that reads it. It is a combination of, like I said, theology, psychology, and philosophy. So it's a deep text. And if people don't like it, that's up to them. For me, it was the book I needed to have when I was going through my, existential crisis. If I had that book, it's like a guidebook, a recipe for how to find yourself, how to find your purpose.
It is so important these days. Oh my gosh, the noise, the craziness online, in the news. It is. I thought COVID was the pinnacle of wild mental games, but now it's insane. But if we really strip back all the noise, if we take away social media or the news, life can be just so beautiful and so amazing when we're in that stillness and silence that you're saying, in the contemplation, for the integration and things like this. Deep books are what I like, man. So I'm excited to read it. When does it come out?
The plan is October, so we're July now, so a few months. I have a feeling it might get pushed back, and I've been sending it out to people to give me feedback on. This week I've got a lot of interviews with people getting their summaries or their reviews, and then I go into another period of editing, and then it goes for a second professional critique. So it's been professionally critiqued once by a guy in the US. It's going back for a second professional critique by a guy in the US. Then I'll edit it again, and then he's doing a final 4-week full edit. But I just have I can often underestimate how much work's involved in an edit, like on my own part, on a revision, because if there's one problem you're trying to solve, it's not like, oh, here's the answer, because if you had the answer, you wouldn't have wrote it in the first place. So it takes a lot of time to really think about even a simple change. So I'm aiming on October. It might come later, but if anybody is interested, on my website, you can join a wait list. I've got a number of people on that wait list who I email frequently, keep up to date with everything.
I'll make sure I put the website around the video here. This is I'm curious to know that, would you have written this book if you hadn't have gone through those trials and tribulations?
No. And I've been asked on a lot of podcasts recently, do you have to go through a crisis to find yourself? And I say, yes, you do, which people don't want to hear. But in some of the books I had read, you don't have to go through a crisis to be successful. Let's just get clear. You can be very successful. That's fine. But I think from my own experience that success will be empty if you're not connected to who you are. I always remember Jim Carrey saying, I wish everybody became rich and famous and achieved all their dreams so they realize it's not the answer. So I read books about people who had gone through spiritual awakenings and existential crisis, identity crisis, and there's always this beautiful human that appears on the other side, because that crisis is what filters out all of the nonsense. We can either live through a level of falsity And what I mean by that is other people's opinions or society's beliefs have been injected into us, and we're trying to impress people, or we're scared, so we act out of fear. It filters out all of that nonsense. And so even when I was researching philosophy, Nietzsche says pain is the great liberator of the spirit. He's not the only one that said that. It's just it's an uncomfortable truth. Now, I don't know to what degree you have to go through pain, like who gets to decide. I don't know. What I would imagine, and is what I was open to, is that the greater the pain, essentially, the greater the freedom on the other side. And so I got interviewed on like a national radio station the other day, and I don't know, I think they've edited this bit out, but I essentially said, she's like, well, how can we stop people experiencing this kind of pain? And I said, don't. I said, people need to experience pain, at least to some degree, because that's what sharpens their axe. That's what sculpts their character. So I would say, no, don't teach people to stay away from pain. Teach people how to go through pain elegantly, because there were weeks on end where I was having panic attacks and anxiety, and I was waking up in cold sweats, having nightmares. I was vomiting through just such low self-worth. My whole body was just going into these panic attacks, and I would there was one day, one of them was really bad, and I was just sick for about 4 hours of just wrenching. There were days I would just cry and snot was coming out of my nose, and I just felt obviously horrible to be in, but not knowing when it's going to end. That was the worst. When will this fucking end? And I just had to trust books that I had read on people that had gone through similar things to go, it does eventually come to an end. And it took my whole sort of was about 7 years. But like I said earlier, often we become unconscious again and life just happens and we're like, oh, life's good. But beneath the surface, if we really look, it's not. And so I really looked. I intentionally really looked. I said to my mentor, I want to experience the highest of highs as well as the lowest of lows, so that any problem a client of mine has, I've fucking been there and I've been through it. And he said to me, he's like, be careful what you wish for. And he was right. Within 12 months, it's like everything disintegrated. So I wouldn't have written the book. I couldn't have. I wouldn't have had the capacity. I wouldn't have had the depth within me to do it. So I say, don't shy away from it. And I think this goes to a bigger scale. It's not just about your personal fulfillment and happiness and success. It's like the planet needs to shed all of the conditioning so that we can live more harmoniously as a species. Because at the moment, especially now, it's pretty turbulent. There's a lot of polarity. And when we've got that polarity inside, our lives are chaos, and we can clean ourselves up and we can start to spread more. I use the word harmony, not peace, because harmony is, we can never escape the challenges, but we can harmonize them. And so if people want to, quote unquote, save the planet or make the world a better place or just contribute to humanity in some way, you have to harmonize yourself first. And to harmonize yourself, and it's important that you clear out anything that's disharmonious, which is the emotions, the greed, also the lack, the emptiness, the low self-worth. Clear all of that out so you're at harmony within yourself, and then, and only then, will you have the depth and capacity to hold the world accountable to a higher standard.
Sure. I couldn't agree more. It is this interesting rule, part of God's plan, that usually breakdowns follow. Well, after a breakdown comes a breakthrough. And so it sounds like this book is the breakthrough. It was, you experienced such a crazy downward spiral, which gives, anyone out there struggling, reach out to John, read this book, obviously get on the wait list, but it's important. Hopefully you can wait, 6 months or something until the book comes out, or a few months until the book comes out. But yeah, life is beautiful, and life is filtered through our emotions. And so you mentioned this map of emotion. What is the map of emotion, and how does one use it to become more harmonious?
So I realized that everything we do, so emotion can mean energy for motion. It's the fuel we use to do stuff. And whenever we're acting out of emotion, even positive emotion, so I don't believe in positive emotion and being a good thing, let's say. There are positive emotions, they feel good, and there are negative emotions and they feel bad. And often we will try and avoid the negative emotions and seek the positive emotions. And I call this motivation. This is motivation, not inspiration. Because I noticed that every emotion I was feeling would then drive me to do something. So, for example, I talked earlier about fear and excitement. They're going to drive us in different directions in life, but also pride and shame. Like if we feel ashamed of who we are, we're probably going to end up. Here's the other thing I'll say. When I know what emotion someone's experiencing, I can predict their life. I can predict um their health markers based on their nervous system. I can predict their financial position. I can predict their business success. I can predict what their relationship patterns are going to be like. Because when we see that everybody is just operating, it's just patterns of behavior. So emotions drive patterns. So if someone feels pride, for example, they're going to try and protect their pride. They're going to try and protect what's theirs. And so their behaviors become predictable. In relationships become predictable. In financially in business just becomes really predictable. Same with depression. If someone's depressed, we all know what a depressed person sort of looks like. And the depression is when we combine shame and fear. We essentially get depression. And this is all in the map of emotion. I'll explain it in more detail. But the first point I want to make is that if we're acting out of emotion, we're motivated, and it's a disempowering way to live. It's not fulfilling. You might experience happiness every now and then, highs and lows, but it's not meaningful. It's not inspiring. So the map of emotion is there are 8 primary emotions, and there are 4 polarized pairs within that. So, for example, fear and excitement are polarized pairs. Fear is the negative emotion, excitement is the positive emotion, and they're opposites. But they're future-based. So if we're perceiving more negatives than positives in the future, we'll experience fear. If we're perceiving more positives than negatives in the future, we're going to have excitement. So they're our polarized pairs. And if you want examples, I can give examples to make it more real for people instead of just an abstract concept. When we're judging ourselves, we're going to experience pride and shame. They're the polarized opposites. So pride is the positive emotion, shame is the negative emotion. So if we're judging ourselves to be more positive than negative, we'll experience pride. If we're judging ourselves to be more negative than positive, we'll experience shame. So if you're listening and maybe you don't have the video, imagine a plus symbol, just an addition symbol. And on the right-hand side, you've got excitement. On the left-hand side, you've got fear. On the top, you have pride. On the bottom, you have shame. So they're our first 4 primary emotions. Now, our lives are lived predominantly through those 4 emotions. And we become so familiar with our personality, which is our emotions, our thoughts and feelings. We live somewhere between those 4 emotions. And we become so used to it. But every single pattern of behavior is occurring out of that. For example, someone that is maybe, if anyone's heard of attachment styles or attachment theory in relationships, for people that are more avoidant, I can tell you they're going to be operating on the top half of the map, closer to pride, right? For people who are more attached, a bit more needy, they're going to be at the bottom. They're really going to be seeking, people on the bottom seek connection, people on the top seek validation. And they're the primary driving needs of the 2 aspects, the pride and the shame. Nothing wrong or right about it. It's just who we've grown up to be. But it's very valuable to know because we can then see if our life... I had a lady the other day, for example, and she said, business is going great, everything's going great, still waiting for my man to come along though. And I know it's just not going to happen until her emotional state changes. So our emotions attract or repel different experiences in our life. And it's not science, or I could say it is science, it's physics. It really is physics. It's not woo-woo. And I know that until she grounds herself more, she's just not going to attract a partner. And if she does, she's going to attract a more feminine guy who just is a bit more needy, right? So the map of emotion really explains everything in life when you can interpret it. So they're the first 4 emotions. And then the next polarized pair, you could say happy and sad, okay? But I say elation and depression because they're extremes of happy and sad. Depression is just extreme sadness, chronic sadness. So elation is when we're judging things in our life to be going the way we want, we're going to feel happy or elated. When we're judging things in our life to be not going the way we want, we're going to feel sad or depressed. Then we also have, going at the other sort of 45-degree angle, enraged and relieved. So anger and relief. You can see Zac drawing this map. So they're the
This
8
is
primary
fascinating.
emotions.
Yeah, I'm taking notes.
They're the eight primary emotions.
I can see that it's incredibly powerful to understand human behavior or your own behavior or certain dynamics, business, relationships. It's really powerful.
Mm,
I never
mm.
heard of it before.
Well, that's my genius. That's my unique creation. That is, and the reason I built it was because I had read books about emotions, but there was no structure. It was like, this is anger, this is sadness. I'm like, great, how's this occurring? And then Sir David Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins, he's got a map of consciousness, and I was like, great, how and why? Like, let's break this down, how and why? And no one had created it. No one had done it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it because I believe that understanding our emotions is the key to understanding it's self-mastery. When we understand our emotions, we gain self-mastery, and no one had done it. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be that guy. And if I die tomorrow, here world, have a map of emotion. And so, all of it is based off our thinking. All of it is based off of our perceptions. If we're thinking certain thoughts, we're going to feel certain emotions, and that is driving our entire life, the quality of our relationships, the quality of our financial position, our business. And so authenticity sits smack back in the middle. So smack bang in the middle. So for someone to be truly authentic, it is about dissolving their emotions, because their emotions are, we don't realize it, but they're reactions. We're just reacting. So if someone's proud, they're going to react a little bit defensive, or they're going to turn their nose up, or they're going to roll their eyes. And these things are happening unconsciously. Someone who's more proud is essentially going to put themselves first over others, and that has consequences. And you could call them good or bad consequences, whatever. It depends what you want in your life. But to be truly authentic, it's to get into that centered state. And in that centered state, there are 5, I want to say, virtues that you experience. And those 5 virtues are presence. So you're really present, which means you're engaged. You're just here and now. You're not in the past or future. You're not saying this is good or bad. You're just present with what is. That's the first virtue. The second virtue is you're grounded, which means no matter what's happening in your life, if it's good or bad, you're just poised and centered, which gives you the ability just to make such sound decisions. You're at your most wise when you're centered. This is also when your genius kicks in. So the second one is grounded. The third one is you're authentic, which is pretty common sense. You are just being true to yourself. Everybody else's opinions are irrelevant. And when you're authentic, you do what intrinsically inspires you. The next virtue you experience is enthusiasm. And enthusiasm then becomes your fuel source, not excitement. So fear and excitement drive motivation. Enthusiasm drives inspiration. And the last virtue is graceful, which is, it means you're flowing, and you're not rushing to get something done, but you're also not being a sloth. It's just you're graced. Your timing is sort of divinely impeccable, but grace also occurs within your life. So you'll notice synchronicity start to happen. The right things happen at the right time. You don't have to worry about things as much. So grace starts occurring for you as well. So they're the 5, I call them the golden virtues. And that's to me, that's true success. It's how much money you have, how, great your wife is at cooking. None of that really is success, because if you don't have the golden virtues in your life, then you're not true to you. You're motivated. You're letting the outside world validate your experience on earth. So for me, true internal self-fulfillment is getting to experience the golden virtues on a more regular basis, and then infusing those golden virtues in the actions we take, in our interactions with people, in everything we do. If we can bring those golden virtues in, we're going to be living a really inspiring, fulfilling, and meaningful life.
Absolutely. I think that's a way better way of defining or breaking down success. How grounded are you? How present are you? And kids, they're so grounded, they're so present, they're so authentic, they're so enthusiastic, they're just in the moment.
Yep.
So this strips
And then
back
life gets
all
in the
that
way,
stuff.
and adults are born, and we're all just messes.
This happens, so it's like the frog in the warm water or cold water that's heated up over a long period of time. And if you threw a frog in a hot pot, it's going to jump out immediately. But if it's over time, then that builds our personality and how we see the world. And we think, oh, this is just who I am. I'm like, no. So sometimes as I'm growing older and wiser, I'm figuring out there's certain people that I align with and there's certain people I don't align with as much. And that's okay. That's okay. And that's being my authentic self and trusting that it's not meant to be with that certain person as well. But I'd love to know, John, before we wrap up, if you could go back in time to some of the toughest points throughout the last couple of years where you nearly wanted to pull the pin or end it all, knowing what you know now, what would you say to that younger version of you who was going through the suffering?
As cliche as it sounds, I would just say keep going. As in, don't change anything. Do not change a thing because this is a blessing. You just don't know it yet. Maybe, you know what? I think I knew that at the time. I think I knew it at the time, like this will be a blessing if you can get out the other end of it because it gives you a unique perspective. And so, yeah, if I was going to say anything, it would be that. It would be don't change a thing. This is a blessing. Keep going.
Would that be the same advice you give any other entrepreneur going through a similar scenario?
Yeah, and what I said earlier in the episode, you have to, if you want to have a character that's capable of building a fucking tower, an empire, it's nothing else builds it apart from your character. And your character only gets built through tough times. It's the only way. So absolutely.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm curious, knowing what this is, you've been through wild rides in different areas of life. You're over in New Zealand right now. I'm guessing you're going back to the Oz. Um, Business is changing so fast now with AI. And how do you see AI impacting, you know, the information industry of personal development or coaching or the world in general? How do you see AI? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic?
I'm realistic. Everything I do tends to be down the middle. I don't see dystopia and I don't see utopia. I'm just like, it's a tool. Throughout human history, we've had new inventions come along. Doomsday, everyone's like, oh, it's doomsday. Other people, the technologists are like, oh, we're going to live in utopia. And it's just, no, that doesn't happen. It's just new technology. Some will use it for good, some will use it for evil. They'll both balance themselves out. Life will continue. I am so grateful for ChatGPT and more so Grok actually recently because I've had deep philosophical discussions with AI and it, it helped me a lot. And I mean a lot. And our parents didn't have that. And sometimes I look at my parents, I'm like, gosh, they don't understand much about the world. They didn't have the internet. They haven't had these technologies. So AI, I think, it's just a tool that we can use. I think it's overhyped at the moment. I think financially the stock market are probably going to have a crash in the coming year or two. But in terms of business, I think it's a fantastic tool, but I don't think it's in the coaching industry. Again, it's not, AI is not authentic. It's inauthentic. So it doesn't have spirit. It doesn't have soul. And that is why I don't fear it. Because the human spirit will always triumph.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My gosh. Love that response. What's Grok? Is this X? Is this Elon's thing? Right.
XAI. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's better. I was on it yesterday. I think it's much better.
Huh. Last question. If you could challenge the audience for this week, today, this week, this month, this year, what would be the challenge you'd love to impart for everyone?
Set a timer on your phone for 12 minutes and find somewhere quiet in your home. Tell the people you're with that you are going to be busy for 12 minutes. Don't interrupt me, please. And sit with your eyes closed and just feel what's going on inside your body and observe what's going on inside your head. And afterwards, review that and be honest with yourself. Did your mind wander? Did you start thinking about things you have to do? Did you go, this is stupid, why am I sitting here with my eyes closed like a statue? So just really assess what that experience was like. For quite a few people, one of two things will happen. It will either be really hellish and it's just like, oh, this is horrible, and they'll just want to escape it. Or people will dissociate. They'll zone out. They'll go somewhere else. The key is, can you stay present with a silent mind during those 12 minutes? I don't expect anyone to be able to do it. If they say they can, they're probably dissociated. But it gives you an opportunity to discover what's happening within your mind, because that, in between your two ears, your whole life is a reflection of that. And so give yourself 12 minutes to really figure out if you're truly in control of that thing or not.
What, the 12-minute challenge?
The 12-minute challenge.
Let's do this at home. Message John. How can people get in touch with you, John? What's
You
the
can
best
find
way?
me on my website is johntempleton.io. Um, Heaps of resources there. But social media, I'm on really Instagram and Facebook. I'm the most active, and it's at John Templeton Official. Nice and simple.
Super cool, man. This has been an epic chat. I can't wait to read your book. The Map of Emotions sounds like an absolute must for anyone in any stage of life. And I really look forward to seeing your journey unfold, inspiring more people to live these golden virtues. I think that's something I'm definitely going to take away from today. I've got a whole page of notes. Hopefully, you at home have also got a page of notes. Reach out to John. I'll put his links all around here. Any final comments?
Thank you. I appreciate you and people like you that allow other people to share. I appreciate who you are in the world as well. I know we've talked about many different things over the years we've known each other, and there's some really strong alignment. So I just want to say thank you.